Welcome in to NFL Daily, powered by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. The NFL trade deadline is coming up very soon, folks. November 5th is the date, and we've already seen some big-time moves in the National Football League. On today's show, we will look at 10 star players who could be dealt before the trade deadline. We'll talk about some potential trade destinations and their situations. We'll go over that in just a moment. If you want your team to make a move, whether you want them to be buyers or sellers, let your voice be heard. Like the video, and let's see if your team's going to be active or not here in the coming days. Like the video, and we'll get started with today's show. Let's begin with the obvious one, Cooper Kupp of the LA Rams. It's no secret that the Rams are shopping Cooper Kupp as they've had discussions with multiple teams. They're hoping for a second-round pick to whatever team he potentially goes to, and the price tag seems to be a bit high for Cooper Kupp, especially with the questions on whether or not he can stay healthy. And the Chiefs seem to be a team that made sense a couple days ago. They went out and made the trade for DeAndre Hopkins. The Ravens seem to be a team that makes a ton of sense, but can they make the salary situation work with their question marks with the salary cap? Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they look like a playoff contending team. They're shorthanded at the wide receiver position with the recent injuries to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. We'll see what happens with Cooper Kupp if he gets dealt or not. What team will trade for Cooper Kupp? Where do you think he ends up, if he goes anywhere at all, before the trade deadline? Get your answers in the comment section on our pinned comment today and let us know what you think. Next up, we turn our attention to Myles Garrett, and the Browns have simply been a dumpster fire here in 2024 with Sean Watson not playing well. He's done for the season. They've already moved on from Amari Cooper, and it appears to be a fire sale in Cleveland right now. And let's be honest here, it would take a lot for any team to trade for Myles Garrett at this point in time. He has been one of, if not the best defensive players in football. And one of the teams that comes to mind right away is the Detroit Lions, who are without Aiden Hutchinson. He's out for the season. The Lions, of course, a Super Bowl contending team. Could a team like the Lions give up all what it takes to bring in a guy like Myles Garrett? Even if the Browns are in rebuilding mode, you would think that the Browns would like to do what they can to build around Myles Garrett, but we'll see. Another Rams player on this list, we turn our attention to Matthew Stafford, who has had a fantastic career, a Super Bowl championship with the LA Rams. But you have to wonder, are the Rams starting to tear it all down with already moving on from Cooper Kupp potentially? We know about Aaron Donald retiring this past offseason, and there's been rumblings that Sean McVay doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild project. Is it time for them to move on from Stafford? And if they do, to me, this would signal the end of the Los Angeles Rams as we know it. They took that approach of F them picks several years ago, and they brought in some of these older guys. We knew it wasn't going to last a long time. If they say goodbye to Stafford, you would have to think that's the end of it. And there's several teams out there, like the New York Giants, that would love to have Matthew Stafford in his services, whether it's trying to get to the playoffs this year or potentially to have him for the next couple of years. Matthew Stafford could be a valuable asset for somebody out there. Another player on this list is somebody that we have talked a lot of trade rumors about over really, it seems like the last 3 seasons. That's Budda Baker with the Arizona Cardinals. And the question I have for the Arizona Cardinals, if they're going to trade Budda Baker or not, is a simple one. Are they all in? The Cardinals are tied for third place in the NFC West at this point. And the NFC West looks pretty wide open right now with the Seahawks at the top of the standings, the Niners with their struggles, and we mentioned the Rams looking like sellers at the deadline here. If you're the Arizona Cardinals, if you think you are a serious threat to win that division, maybe you don't want to trade Budda Baker. Maybe you want to hold on to him and try to see if you can make a playoff run. If the Cardinals still feel like they're another year or two away, then it would make sense to move on from Budda Baker and try to get something out of him here at the deadline for any teams that could use some safety help. Should the Cardinals trade Budda Baker? What do you guys think? Does it make sense for the Cardinals to finally move on from Budda Baker? Type T for trade, K for keep. Let us know in that comment section. Today's show is sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the place to go for daily fantasy made easy. Pick two or more players in any given category. Get the choice of more or less, whether you're talking fantasy points in football, rebounds in basketball, goals in hockey, home runs in baseball, all sorts of different categories to choose from. And Prize Picks has a great offer right now. They will give you $50 when you spend $5. You don't even have to win to get the money, folks. It's that great of an offer from Prize Picks. And this week on Prize Picks, I got a little football action for you as I'm going with Patrick Mahomes against that awful Raiders defense that have more than 229.5 passing yards. Also going with Kenneth Walker III, the Seahawks running back. They have more than 64.5 rushing yards. Let's say I put $20 down and both these hit. That turns into $60 on Prize Picks. You can play along with me, prizepicks.com/SailItS. Promo code SailItS. The link is in the comments and the description of today's video. Prize Picks, proud partner of NFL Daily by Chat Sports. All right, let's continue now. Let's go to Trey Hendrickson, the defensive end from the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals, this is a very confusing team. They have a ton of talent, right, with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, among others there. But they haven't had the results, and I think a lot of it has to do with coaching. I don't think Zach Taylor's a very good coach. And it's no secret that Trey Hendrickson is not going to be a member of the Cincinnati Bengals after this season, as everybody knows that Hendrickson and T. Higgins both are in the final years of their contracts, and they're both likely going to walk away and have new destinations in 2025 anyway. So if you're the Bengals, would you rather go ahead and trade Trey Hendrickson or even T. Higgins for that matter right now and get something out of them? Or would you sit there and hope that you position yourselves to get a comp pick in the offseason next year and then have to wait another year for that comp pick to come into place, comparably speaking, of getting that pick now and having that available in next year's draft? That's a decision that the Bengals have to make. Next on the list, this might come as a surprise to some folks, but we bring up George Pickens, the wide receiver from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pickens has been a very good football player since entering the NFL, but there's been a lot of problems with George Pickens, some character concerns in how he's carried himself. I think it was a really bad look for him, that Sunday night game a couple of weeks ago when he was shoving a Cowboys player, and that's just gone with a number of problems. And history tells us with the Pittsburgh Steelers that they don't like to deal with diva receivers, that they move on from these guys pretty quickly, and that they've done a good job of moving on from wide receivers at the right time. We've seen those examples time and time again, from Antonio Brown to Mike Wallace, and even some guys more recently, like the next guy we're going to talk about here in a moment. The Steelers have done a good job of moving on from players and getting what they can. It would be something if they move on from George Pickens at this point. It's not impossible, but still unlikely, but we'll see. That'll be something to follow. Speaking of former Steeler receivers, Deontay Johnson, whose production fell off by the time he left the Pittsburgh Steelers from what he was at previously. He's gone to Carolina this year, and he's actually looked pretty decent with that Carolina Panthers offense. And the Panthers, this is a team that should be sellers at the deadline, that are just not a very good team at all, and would like to get all the draft capital and comp picks they can possibly get on this Panthers team right now. And Deontay Johnson, if you're a team that needs receiver help, like we mentioned with the Buccaneers or the Ravens potentially, Deontay Johnson could be a good answer for you there. Let's talk about pass rushers now. And Ojulari from the New York Giants has had a very good season so far in 2024, a sneaky good season. And this could be a guy that a lot of teams could potentially use, as you can never have too many pass rushers. And I'm looking at Ojulari, somebody that the production is high, even on a team that has question marks like the New York Giants. And think about this, too. He's playing alongside Dexter Lawrence, and yet he still performing at his level, doing a good job with having somebody there in Dexter Lawrence that probably doesn't help you too much in the stat book, considering what he does as well. Ojulari could be a potential option for somebody out there looking for some pass rush help. We got a couple more names to get to before we wrap up, but want to hear from you guys. Who's a star player that you believe will be traded before the deadline? Weigh in, give me a name or two that comes to mind that you think is going to be dealt. The NFL trade deadline almost here. We're all over it here on NFL Daily by Chat Sports as we're bringing you our daily news and rumors. We have our live shows during the week with Tom Downey. We also are bringing you our Red Zone channel on Sunday afternoons as well. For the latest happenings across the National Football League, sub it up, stay up to date with all the latest trade deadline news right here on the channel. Subscribe now for free, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Couple more names we'll wrap up here include Greg Newsome II from the Cleveland Browns at the corner position, another Cleveland Browns player, somebody with a lot of potential. He's been used primarily as a nickel corner, but there might be some flexibility to try to see what he can play on the outside, and there's a lot of potential. I think that the Browns have liked what they've seen from Greg Newsome. If you're a team like the Kansas City Chiefs who could use some corner help, that could make sense for them. As far as that goes, Greg Newsome, I think, is somebody certainly to watch if you're in that market for that corner position. Last on our list is Chase Young, the defensive end from the New Orleans Saints, and they just brought him in this offseason on a pretty decent-sized contract after previously playing for the San Francisco 49ers and the Washington Commanders. And it's no secret, you look at this New Orleans Saints team, they are just a mess. Won their first 2 games by big margins, and they have been bad ever since. And if you're the Saints, you are closer to a rebuild than you are closer to the top. We know about their quarterback concerns with Derek Carr going down and not getting much help from Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener either. I could see them very well trading Chase Young and finding a new home for him on that front. I would look out for a team like Baltimore potentially as a possibility for his help there, and we'll see where things go from there. If you enjoyed today's show, if you want your team to make a move at the deadline, like the video. We certainly would appreciate it. I'm Tyler Jones. We'll see you next time here on NFL Daily.